Ian, thank you for giving us your time.
Pleasure.
We're here to talk about a change at the football club, a fairly significant change with new investment coming in and all shares being transferred away from you and the other shareholders. But first I want to look back at the last 8 to 10 years. You've been chairman of this football club and involved in the football club for 8 years now, with a huge amount of success in that period.
Yeah, I mean, we've done very well over that period. I was just looking back at old programmes before I came in today, and I remember well the very first game that we had in the what was then called the Evo Stick Southern League One, I think it was called, something like that, which was effectively the Southern League One, but it was in its previous identity. And I remember well, we were at a place called Mangots Field, which is just above Nailsworth, which is where Forest Green are. And Forest Green is on the top of one hill, and Mangots Field is on the top of the other hill, with sort of like with a valley below it. And getting up to the ground was an absolute nightmare of a narrow road, etc. And that was our first game in the new league, having been promoted from the Wessex. And we won 5-0. And I wrote my first chairman's chat for that season. And I was looking at the headline. It says, "We're number one in the league. Let's hope we can stay that way for the whole season."
A very optimistic outlook at the start of the season.
Well, we reached the playoffs, but we didn't go up.
No. There have been 2 promotions since then, though.
And the second one, of course, was the really big one, getting up into the National League South. But yeah, I remember the beating Didcot to make sure we went up into the Southern League Prem, as it was then called. And the noise in the bar at the end of that game, with the chanting of "we're going up, we're going up." And the players all came up to have something to eat. And they were all mobbed and cheered every time any one player went through the crowd. It was quite an exciting evening after the game.
And how do those moments make you feel? As chairman, how do those moments make you feel?
Warm, I suppose, is the answer. Because it's not personal. I haven't actually done anything to make the club win games. What I've tried to do is create an atmosphere around the club so that others perform to the top of their abilities. I suppose I'd phrase it that way. And therefore it's great to see when things work out rather than when they don't. And clearly the game at Tottenham to get the playoff there and the penalty shootout, God, as I said to you on the pitch after the game, although I'd been sitting down for the whole game, my legs were like rubber. It was the most peculiar sensation of excitement, relief, enjoyment. It's hard to put into words.
I think there was a bit of bewilderment as well, and kind of shock and surprise. You were a little bit reticent after the game. Alan Green was quite forceful to get you to go and join in the celebrations.
I don't like saying it, but the Tottenham chairman was trying to get everybody off the pitch, and he was telling me to get all our fans off the pitch and everything. And it was a slightly weird sensation, to be perfectly honest. But no, I'm glad I went on. Not so sure that my photographs with the rest of the team look wonderful.
But they're special moments. They're special
memories. It was a fantastic day. And then, of course, we've had our season in the National League South, which ended up in a slightly disappointing, because I was fairly sure halfway through the season that we were going to finish halfway up that league.
I'm sure you're not alone in thinking that.
And it gradually deteriorated. So many players on loan with injuries and the such. And it was quite extraordinary. We lost 3 strikers through a broken shoulder, a dislocated shoulder, and a broken arm in the last 2 months of the season. It was really weird. And driving down to what's it called?
To Welling
on the last day of the season. I'd already said I was dreading the last game of the season mattering as to whether or not we stayed up. But it was so relaxing. After 10 minutes at Truro, we were already 3 up. It didn't really matter what happened. But it was a bit of a helter-skelter at the end. But it was an enjoyable season. I enjoyed it, don't get me wrong. But now Brian's got a new challenge, which is to make sure players can all play for 100 minutes rather than about 88 minutes.
Yes, it's a very challenging league, this. So let's move on to the here and now and the new investment. So why have you and the board decided that now is the right time to welcome new investment at the club?
I think we appreciate that the cost of running the club successfully in the National League South or above or whatever is far greater than running the club in the Southern League. We don't want to go back down there. We could not support Brian with a decent budget that he could be really satisfied with, that would enable him to develop the club going forward. And what really matters for us is to generate a sustainable club for Salisbury, which has every opportunity to move forward rather than move backward. We couldn't have done it without new investment, and it's not just a question of a one-off gift going into the bank account of the club. It's got to be something which can, as I say, long-term sustainability is what really matters for the club. And therefore, a new style of investment was absolutely necessary to carry the club forward into the future.
And this isn't a knee-jerk reaction. This is something that's been going on for quite a while. It's been an in-depth process.
I mean, I remember well the first board meeting at the beginning of the season that's just ended. I said to the board that I did not think that the finances of the club could sustain the club at that level for more than the first season, and that we really needed to look for a way that would enable the club to continue to thrive. Out of the blue, the club was contacted by Alexander Jarvis of Blackbridge Limited, I think it is, who specialise in football club transfers and investments. He was abroad, or he is abroad, he lives abroad, and he has foreign investors that he knew would be interested in Salisbury. Salisbury itself, of course, is an internationally known city, whereas a lot of the clubs in our league most certainly are not known around the world as to where they are or what they're famous for. And he contacted us actually in September of last year. At first I thought, I'm not sure this is the right way forward for the club. But he'd been involved in the Truro takeover. I know he's been involved with Tranmere Rovers being taken over as well. And recently we understand he's arranged a huge income generation for Benfica. So he's well established, and he knows an awful lot of people who are quite wealthy around the world and who want to be involved in British football. And as I say, originally I wasn't entirely sure that this was the right way forward. But after a little while, I chatted to Amanda Newbury, and Amanda contacted Alexander. And she started to get on really well with him and was really excited by the opportunities. So we had discussions and decided that, yes, we would continue to talk to Alex and some of his contacts and see if there was a genuine way forward that would benefit Salisbury Football Club.
And you spoke to several of his contacts?
Yeah, we were involved with 3 of them, in actual fact. But there was a 4th who we didn't actually touch base with. 2 of them, one of them wasn't that interested realistically. The other one was very interested, and we had a couple of Zoom meetings with him. But he never never seemed to be able to take things forward. And then we were introduced to Ali, who got so excited about the whole concept of involvement here. and it was a completely breath of fresh air coming into the club, and he had the available funds to enable the future. He's bubbling over with enthusiasm for it. He's been over here. He's seen the ground. His whole family is excited about it. He did spend some time in the UK when he was at university, so he knows the UK. It's not like somebody who's coming from a non-UK background. And he's very excited and really is keen to take the club forward in a way that we, the existing shareholders, could not afford to do. And he's very keen to help Brian and Callum develop the team. He's giving Brian a bigger budget than we could possibly have afforded, which is, of course, why some of the players that Brian's been bringing in over the past few days, or past couple of weeks, have raised eyebrows on social media. But we're going to be working within Ali's new budget for Brian, but the opportunity for the club could not have been overlooked. And it just I'm sure it gives us this sustainability to move forward in this league and hopefully above.
And you talk about his enthusiasm and his passion and having met him myself, it bubbles over.
Yes,
but
it does.
There's a very serious businessman in there as well, and he's put a business plan to you. So you've seen the next 5 to 10 years of what the football club might look like, and I guess that excites you.
Absolutely. And it also means that, from a purely personal point of view, being selfish, I feel that I'm handing over to a long-term future rather than saying, "Oh dear, what happens now?" and where does it go from here? I'm absolutely delighted that I feel, and the rest of the board feels, that we're putting in place a long-term future for the club and for its benefit.
And we've already touched on this, but this isn't a knee-jerk decision, and there's a huge amount of due diligence that's gone in with lawyers doing checks. The FA and the league have been involved too.
Absolutely, this is very different from the situation when Salisbury City was acquired, so-called, for £1, 11 years ago or so. The information required by the National League and the FA to vet a new owner is very detailed indeed. And it's not just the personality. They want copies of business plans and what the finances of the club will look like. And it's a completely different situation. And they've had to be absolutely satisfied that the way forward for the club is with Ali as the owner through his company, Pro League.
So we'll talk a bit about the transition now. Obviously, you as shareholders will no longer be shareholders, but we'll still see you at the club. You'll be here on match days.
As far as I'm aware, we're all planning on being here just as much as we were before. I thoroughly enjoy being here. I enjoy the hospitality side, looking after the visitors from other clubs. And as far as I'm aware, I will be continuing to do just that. I should be a fan. I should be going to away games in just the same way as I did before. And I'm really looking forward to a great season going forward. One of the things that Ali made quite clear when we first got in touch with him was there was no point in buying the club and then trying to change it. What it needed was continuity and development from that, starting with the continuity. For continuity, the last thing you do is remove all the people who know how to run the club and bring in new people who don't know how to run the club. Therefore, what is absolutely vital is to maintain the establishment within the club to take it forward, albeit that he will have an overall control.
And from what I've seen, there's a huge amount of respect for the knowledge that you guys have about running the club from Ali.
Certainly that's come over to me as well.
Moving forwards, we have an opportunity for supporters to come and meet the new owners and pose their own questions, because we know that there's going to be lots of questions that they're going to have around what the future looks like, from questions that I probably can't even imagine at this point. So they got a chance to come this evening at 7 p.m. and they can ask their questions of
We'll
Ali,
be there.
but also of you guys too.
Yep, I'll be there as well. I'll be glad to see Ali again. It's a few weeks since we met when he was here, and we showed him around the Ray Mac, and we took loads of photographs. He was so excited about being here, and he took some of the shirts away for him and his family, and he was very excited about the whole thing.
And one of his and supporters will obviously get a chance to hear this from himself, but one of the big things that excites him is our supporters and our volunteers.
Absolutely.
And the people who love this club.
When you asked right at the start about the last 10 years or the last 8 years in my capacity, we could never have achieved anything without all the work of the volunteers and the amount of support that the club has got from its fans, both home and particularly away. I mean, the number of fans who travel away with us is quite extraordinary, and must be one of the highest in the league, other than the ones who, people like Torquay, who automatically have a huge following. But of the clubs who've managed or come up from a lower level, we must have more travelling fans than the majority. You only have to see when we're here at the Ray Mac, quite a few clubs, they bring about 20 or 30 people, if that. Whereas when we go away, we can be taking 100, 200, even 300, I think, occasionally. And that gives the players a huge amount of, I'm not sure what the right word is.
An extra spring in their step when they're playing.
Absolutely. And a keenness to prove their worth and to prove that wearing the shirt is what they really want to do. And it's very exciting. And in a way, I sometimes enjoy some of the away games more than some of the home games, because you never quite know what to expect when you go away.
Definitely some of our most dramatic results have been away from home.
I mean, some of the last-minute goals we've managed to score. I mean, Dorking is obviously the one that springs to mind, coming back with in the last 10, 15 minutes. It's just amazing, and it's so exciting.
I think it would be remiss of me not to kind of reverse that thanks. I know there's a lot of supporters who are really appreciative of the way that you've run the club and the way that you've backed the club too.
Well, I've done my best, that's all I can say.
Thanks, Ian.
Thank you.